Hare Krishna, everybody, welcome on YouTube. If it's your first time, please hit that subscribe button and listen closely as we read the 5th chapter of Elevation to Krishna Consciousness. The chapter is called Knowing Krishna's Energies. Before we start, I'll just chant auspicious invocation. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the 5th chapter, Knowing Krishna's Energies. For Krishna, there is no difference between material and spiritual energy. For him, it is all the same. Sometimes electricity works for cooling purposes, and sometimes it works for heating purposes. But the energy generated from the electric powerhouse is all the same. Similarly, Krishna's energy is always spiritual, but it is acting in different ways. In a town, there may be a department of welfare and a department of police. In the eyes of the government, both are the same, for both are subsidiary parts of the government. But for the individual, they render different services. Material energy may be working in different ways that may not be very pleasant to the living entity. But that does not mean that material energy is not liked by Krishna. It is as important as spiritual energy, but it is engaged to punish the conditioned soul, just as the police department is engaged in punishing criminals. In the Brahma Samhita, it is confirmed that Krishna's energy is always spiritual, but it is acting in different ways in different fields of activities. In relation to Krishna, there is no distinction between the energies, but for our understanding, we discriminate and say that sometimes the energy is working in a material way and sometimes in a spiritual way. We are thinking that the energy is hot or cold, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, but in fact, the energy is the same. Krishna cannot distribute inferior energy because he is not inferior. He is always superior, spiritual, and therefore his energy is always spiritual. Subhadra is the sister of Krishna. And from her comes incarnation of Durga, the personification of material energy. Subhadra is in the spiritual world and is eternally related to Krishna as his energy. But when Durga conducts her activities here in the material world, it is not that she is to be considered inferior. In the Bhagavad Gita as well as in Brahma Samhita, it is said that Durga or Maya is acting under Krishna's direction. So how can she be considered inferior? Criminals may think that the police department is an inferior governmental department, but the law-abiding citizens do not think that this is so. It simply functions in a particular way. Similarly, the material energy has to act to bewilder the living entity who is under the direction of Krishna. Hare Krishna Ganesham Prabhu. We are the living entities within the material energy, and we are in this position because we wanted to dominate material nature. Krishna has given us the facility saying, all right, you may try, but you cannot be successful. As long as we're in ignorance of how the laws of nature are working under the supreme direction of Krishna, we will continue to be defeated in our activities. When we understand Krishna in perfection, we will automatically know the laws of nature and how they are acting. Vaishnavas are concerned with the background of the laws of material nature. When we understand Krishna in perfection, we can understand that there is in actuality no inferior or material energy, but that everything is spiritual. We can understand that on the higher platform, whatever we are experiencing are the actions and reactions of different energies of the Supreme Lord. When we understand Krishna perfectly, then these distinctions of superior and inferior energies will disappear. Whatever is engaged in the service of Krishna is superior energy. In the higher sense, everything is serving Krishna, and those who are highly elevated understand this. That the Lord has various energies is confirmed in Vedic literatures. Yet the Supreme Lord personally has nothing to do. How is this? He is not to strive for wealth, for all wealth is his, nor for knowledge, for all knowledge is his, nor for power, for all power is his, nor for beauty, for all beauty is his, nor for fame or renunciation, for they are all his in full. Nor does he directly manage universal affairs, for he has many assistants who can conduct affairs while he remains in his abode. This is confirmed in Sri Ishopanishad. Anejat ekam manaso javiyo naina deva apnuvan puvam ashat. Tadavato atetitistat tasmin apomatarishwa tadati. This is Sri Ishopanishad Mantra 4. The translation is as follows. The personality of Godhead, although fixed in his abode, is more swift than the mind and can move, can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he has control over those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. Thus, Krishna has no work to perform. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he simply engages in enjoying himself with the gopis, cowherd girls, and his consort Radharani. Krishna, as Krishna, does not really engage in killing demons. When Krishna kills the demons, he is known as Vasudeva Krishna, not the original Krishna. When Krishna expands himself, he first expands as Balaram. Balaram's appearance is coming up in August. Also, Krishna's appearance is coming up. Then, as Sankarshan, Pradumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva. As Vasudeva, he acts in Mathura and Dwarka. But as Krishna, in his original feature, he remains in Vrindavan. This may seem to be confusing. Even one of the greatest fiction writers in Bengal misunderstood and thought that Krishna of Vrindavan, Krishna of Dwarka, and Krishna of Mathura were three different persons. But this is not difficult to understand if we know the nature of Krishna's expansions. Hare Krishna, Little. Yes, I'd like to really know points that get to you, that really make you think, wow. Krishna is the same, and he is the one without a second. But he can expand himself in billions and trillions of forms. This is all for the purpose of his enjoyment. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains his different manifestations to Arjuna in this way. Uchaishra sava sam ashwanam vidimam amrito bhavam airavatam gajendranam naranam cha naradipam ayudanam aham vajram denunam asmi kamaduk prajanas chasmi kandapa sapanam asmi vasuki. He says, of horses know me to be Uchaisrava, who rose out of the ocean, born of the elixir of immortality. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata, and among men, I am the monarch. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am Kandapa, the god of love. And, no, among cows, I am Kamadu, giver of abundant milk. Of procreators, I am Kandapa, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki, the chief. This is Gita, text 27 and 28, chapter 10. Lord Krishna further enumerates the many great manifestations of the material creation and explains how each was representative of himself. He concluded a long, detailed account of these manifestations by saying, Atava bahuna itena kim gyatena tavajuna vistabayam idam kristam ekam senas tito jagat. For Krishna, this is just something small, nothing important, nothing to be worried about. What type of energy is this? He says, what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire universe. Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Thus, this material world is existing on one plenary portion of Krishna. If Krishna didn't enter this universe, it could not exist. Similarly, unless the spirit soul, which is a fragmental portion of Krishna, enters this body cannot exist. As soon as the spirit soul leaves, the body immediately becomes useless. When Krishna enters into matter, matter has value. This is true for the minute individual atom and the great universe as well. Since the manifestations of Krishna are so great, we should know that his enjoyment is far greater than ours. We have to try to understand what kind of enjoyment Krishna likes. Everyone knows that God is great, and we can conclude from this that his enjoyment is great also. In this regard, Sarup Damodar Goswami has written a verse which says that although the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna may appear like ordinary material affairs, this is not actually the case. Radharani is the pleasure potency of Krishna. In the Vedanta Sutra, the absolute truth is said to be always enjoying the pleasure potency. When we want pleasure, we cannot have it alone. We feel pleasure in the company of friends or family. I may speak in a room alone, but if I speak in a room before other people, the pleasure is increased. Pleasure means that there must be others, and therefore Krishna, the absolute truth, who is always engaged in enjoying himself, has become many. We are Krishna's parts and parcels and have been created to give pleasure to Krishna. The chief pleasure potency is Radharani, and so Radha Krishna are always together, whereas the material energy is conducted by the external potency, Maya. The spiritual world is conducted by the internal potency, Radharani. We often pray to Radharani because she is the pleasure potency of Krishna. The very word Krishna means all attractive. But Radharani is so great that she attracts Krishna. If Krishna is always attractive to everyone and Radharani is attractive to Krishna, how can we imagine the position of Srimati Radharani? We should try humbly to understand and offer her our obeisances, saying, Radharani, you are so dear to Krishna. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are Krishna's beloved. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you. Radharani is very dear to Krishna, and if we approach Krishna through the mercy of Radharani, we can easily attain him. If Radharani recommends a devotee, Krishna immediately accepts that devotee, however foolish he may be. That's very, very interesting, however foolish it may be. Consequently, in Vrindavan, we find that the devotees are always calling Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. We should be more interested in worshipping Radharani, for however fallen we may be, if somehow or other we can please her, we can very easily understand Krishna. If we try to understand Krishna by the speculative process, we will have to spend many lifetimes of speculation. But if we take to devotional service and just try to please Radharani, then Krishna can be realized easily. Radharani is such a great devotee, and that she can deliver Krishna. Even Krishna cannot understand Radharani's qualities. He fails to understand her because she is so great. In order to understand Radharani, Krishna actually accepted her position. Krishna thought, although I am full and complete in every respect, I still don't understand Radharani. Why is that? This obliged Krishna to accept the propensities of Radharani, and this accounts for his manifestation as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, but he is Krishna accepting the propensities of Radharani. Radharani is always feeling separation from Krishna, and similarly, in the position of Radharani, Lord Chaitanya was always feeling that separation. Furthermore, those who follow the teachings of Lord Chaitanya should experience and relish the feelings of separation, not of meeting. The Goswamis, disciples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most perfect and highly elevated beings, never said, I have seen Krishna. Instead, they constantly cried, where is Radharani? Where are Lalita and Vishaka and the other damsels of Vrindavan? In their mature stage of love of Godhead, when they were living in Vrindavan, the Goswamis would also cry, Radharani, where are you? Where are your associates? Where are you, O son of Nanda Maharaj? Where are you all? In this way, they were searching after Krishna. They never at any time said, last night I saw Krishna dancing with the gopis. Such claims are not made by a mature devotee, but by one who takes things very cheaply. Some people think that Radha and Krishna are so cheap that they may be seen every night. But this is not the teaching of the Goswamis, who were always searching after Krishna, crying, where are you? Where are you, Radharani? Where are you, Krishna? Are you there by Govardhan Hill? Are you on the bank of the Jamuna? In this way, throughout the whole tract of Vrindavan, the Goswamis were crying and searching after Radha and Krishna like madmen. We have to follow in the footprints of the Goswamis and search out Radha and Krishna in this very way. Vrindavan is in our hearts, and we must search for him there. That is the process recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the process of worship in separation. Feeling separation from Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would throw himself into the sea. Sometimes he would leave his room in the dead of night and disappear. No one would know where he had gone, but all the while he was searching after Krishna. Thus, it is not that we are to enjoy the loving exchanges between Krishna and Radha like spectators at some sports show. We must feel separation from them. The more we feel separation, the more we should understand that we are advancing. With our material senses, we cannot see Krishna, nor can we hear his name. We can begin to perceive him when we advance in devotional service. That devotional service begins with the tongue, not the legs, eyes, or ears. The tongue must be utilized to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. and take Krishna Prasadam. Thus the tongue has a dual function, and by utilizing it in this way, we realize Krishna. For those who may not know what prasadam is vegetarian food, lacto-vegetarian food, which is offered to Krishna and has become karma-free and therefore has the power to purify consciousness, to uplift consciousness, and ultimately awaken love of God within us. We cannot see Krishna with our mature eyes, nor hear about him with mature ears, nor touch him with our hands. But if we engage our tongue in his service, he will reveal himself saying, "Here I am." This chanting of Hare Krishna extinguishes the blazing fire of material nature. This is also the purport to the following prayer to the spiritual master. Jai Prabhupada. Sansara dava nalalida loka Tranaya karuna ganaganatam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. This material world is often compared to a forest fire which takes place automatically. No one wants a forest fire, but there is often lightning or carelessness or friction or whatever, and the fire immediately takes place. Similarly, this material world is beset with the blazing fire of problems. In case you haven't noticed. Everyone wants to live here peacefully, but situations develop in such a way that this is not possible for anyone. We struggle very hard to adjust things in so many ways, but nature's laws are so cruel and dangerous that in spite of our hopes and plans, the blazing fire of the problems of material existence continues. In this century, for instance, we have attempted to put out the fire of war, but it has not been possible. There was a First World War, and then a League of Nations was formed to try to prevent a second. But despite their attempts, a second took place. Now the United Nations has been constructed to help end war, but war is going on in Vietnam, in Egypt, in Pakistan, we would say in Mozambique, in Angola, in all these different countries, South Sudan. No one wants a third world war, but it seems imminent. It is not possible to send a fire brigade, a few men with buckets of water to extinguish a great fire in the forest. To extinguish a roaring forest fire, there must be volumes of water. In other words, there must be an arrangement that is beyond human endeavor. When there is a merciful cloud over the forest fire, the cloud bursts, rain pours down in torrents, and the blazing fire is immediately extinguished. As a cloud collects water from the ocean, similarly, the spiritual master collects water from Krishna's ocean of mercy and pours it over the blazing fire of material existence. Thus, one who bestows or distributes the merciful rain of Krishna is called a spiritual master or guru. In Vedic literatures, it is said that in order to understand the transcendental science of Krishna consciousness, we must try to acquire knowledge of how to extinguish this blazing fire of problems. Blazing fire of problems, Prabhupada says. Scientists, philosophers, and other educated men are trying very hard to extinguish it, but the result seems to be bigger and bigger bombs. The kamis, or fruitive laborers, are working with heart and soul, day and night, to extinguish this fire. or to diminish the miserable condition of material existence by dint of hard labor. The Gyanis, or philosophers, are also trying, but they have become disgusted and so proclaim, this world is false. This thinking this, they try to merge into the existence of the Supreme and in this way extinguish the fire. This is like the jackal who tries to pick some grapes from a vine. And when he fails, he says, oh, these grapes are sour. Anyway, I don't want them. The yogis or meditators try to gain superior mystic power by becoming greater than the greatest, smaller than the smallest, lighter than the lightest, and heavier than the heaviest. But this is just so much child play. With any material body, whether it be great or small, light or heavy, the problems of material existence still remain. In this way, one may progress from one stage to another, coming from the stage of karmi or fruitive laborer, to the stage of jnani or philosopher, to the stage of yogi or meditator. But in any case, one finally has to come to the platform of bhakti. So that's the point. Or devotional service. This is the real evolutionary process. It is indicated in Bhagavad Gita in this way. Bahunam janmanamante kyanavan mam prapadyante vasudeva savam iti samahatma sudulabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. One who surrenders is very rare. Surrender to Krishna is the point. That is the aim of life. And the bhaktas, the intelligent men of the world, take to this stage immediately. Therefore, Krishna says that they are wise men. If after many, many births one has to come to this point of surrender, then why not immediately? Don't wait, Prabhupada is saying, for many lives. Do it in this very life. Do it now. As the brand says, just do it. The blazing fire of material nature is supervised by Durga. Often she is portrayed with weapons in her hands. She has 10 hands, and each holds a different type of weapon. This indicates that she is ruling all 10 directions of this universe. She wields the different weapons to chastise the demons. There is one famous picture of a demon struggling with a lion, and the goddess Durga is pulling the demon's hair and pushing her trident against his chest. If we study this picture, we can determine that we are the demon, and that the trident is the threefold miseries of material existence, from which we are always suffering. Some miseries are inflicted by other living entities, like viruses and bacteria. Some are inflicted by natural disasters, and some are inflicted by the mind and body themselves. Aren't we living in the age of anxiety, depression, mental disturbances? No one in the material creation can say that he is free from them. The trident of this material nature is pressed against everyone's chest. And because of this, pure happiness within this material world is not possible. We may try to satisfy Mother Durga by worshipping her or by giving her some bribe. But Durga is not so easily bribed. Therefore, we should know that our aim of life should be to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should make every arrangement, social, political, philosophical, or religious, but the aim should be to approach the Supreme Person. So this is a very nice point. Hare Krishna Kamasundari, good to have you. That Krishna consciousness is not just for in-house religious experience, but it should enter all spheres, social, political, economical. It is meant to affect all departments of human life. In the Vedas, it is stated that the learned advanced people, the demigods of the creation, simply look to the lotus feet of Krishna. The aim should be the same with human civilization. Without looking to Krishna's lotus feet, all religious, social, or political endeavors will fail. Fail, fail, fail. It is not possible to make progress as long as our desires are anchored in the material world. In this regard, there is a story of a bridegroom's party who had to go to the bride's house down the river. It was settled that they would start at night by boat and reach the destination early in the morning. Therefore, at night, after supper, the jubilant party got aboard a boat, made themselves comfortable, and instructed the boatmen to start. Since all the members of the party were seated comfortably, and since the river breeze was very pleasant, they slept soundly that night. In the morning, they all got up early, but to their astonishment, they saw that the boat had not moved an inch toward the destination, even though the boatmen had rowed vigorously all night long. Finally, after inquiring, they found that despite the boatmen's rowing, the boat had not moved because they had failed to raise the anchor. The marriage ceremony was thus spoiled because of a foolish mistake. Our present civilization is therefore a mistaken civilization because the mistaken leaders have forgotten to raise the anchor of attachment. Instead, the anchor is being more and more firmly fixed because they have structured social order on the basis of sense gratification. The sense gratifying social and political setup, maintained by various plans and schemes, has been described in the Bhagavad Gita as follows. Kamam asrita duspuram dhambamana madanvitaha mohat grihitva sagraham pravatante shuchi vrataha chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upasritaha kamopa bhoga parama etavat iti nischitaha. The demoniac, taking shelter of insatiable lust, pride, and false prestige, and being thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. Their belief is that to gratify the senses unto the end of life is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, there is no measurement for their anxiety. Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, text 10 and 11. Tell me if this doesn't really echo our civilization. So much anxiety, no end to the desires. The leaders, like the boatmen, are all illusion. They mislead us into taking some temporary benefit. But how long can their plans and schemes go on? If they persist until they die of heart failure or are killed by assassins, then another, just like them, takes their place. Even the so-called philosophers of modern society are captivated by material name and fame, and so they do not lead the general population in the proper direction. Thus, the anchor of life remains deeply fixed in the waters of nescience for the purpose of sense gratification, and thus our so-called civilization rots in a stagnant pool. Try to picture that. The anchor is fixed in sense gratification in a pond of stagnant water, and therefore all of us are rotting away in that stagnation. Because we are not moving, we are always in the same pot of problematic life. Jai Shri Prabhupada. The pot of problematic life. Some people are going to the pot of good hope in Cape Town. There are different ports, but this material world, Prabhupada calls the port of problematic life. How poetic. All schemes are only useless scraps of paper in the face of war, famine, earthquakes, and other disasters. All these disasters are warnings from Mother Durga, and by them she confirms her eternal superiority over the illusion plan makers. The different weights on the anchor which keep us grounded in material life are our attachments to the material body due to our ignorance of spiritual facts, our attachment to kinsmen due to bodily relations, our attachment to our land of birth and our material positions, our attachment to material science and our attachment to religious forms and rituals without knowing their true purpose. If you can remember those attachments that are anchoring us, 5 of them are mentioned. All these anchor the boat of human body, and in the material universe. They anchor their boat in the material universe. Hare Krishna, Martin Prabhu. Krishna can also be translated as Christ, Buddha, Allah, etc. We should avoid sectarian attitude. Are you implying Prabhupada is sectarian? We are reading Prabhupada's words here, and Prabhupada is very liberal, just as you stated before. Krishna, Prabhupada would say Christ in English, Christos in the Greek language. We also find in the Metunere, African ancient scriptures, that the word Kra is there for the divine supreme. It's good advice to avoid sectarian attitude. Shri Krishna, using the example of a strongly rooted banyan tree, advises us in Bhagavad Gita how to get rid of this attachment once and for all. So this is very good. Narupam asyeha tato palabhyate, nanto chadi na cha sampratishta, ashwata menam suviruda mulam, asanga shastrena dridena chitta, tata padam tat parima gitavyam, yasman gata na nivartanti bhuya, tameva chadyam purusham prapadye, yata pravriti prashta purani. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. This banyan tree must be cut out with determination by the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that situation from which, having gone, one never comes back. One must surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom everything has begun and is extending since time immemorial. So I see the Kamala Sundari, you have these 5 anchors. There is another 5 that Prabhupada has explained here. I'll try to say them slowly, because lust, greed, illusion, and envy, these are called the whips or the 6 enemies. So they are also anchoring us in material consciousness, but they are also mentioned as the enemies. Here specifically, here the attachments are listed as 1. Attachment to the material body due to ignorance of spiritual facts. That would be 1. Then attachment to kinsmen due to the bodily relations. Oh, these are my people. And then the attachment to the land of birth and our material possessions. South Africa. Such attachments are there. Our attachment to material science. Through science and technology, we will usher in so much happiness. We become attached. Attachment to religious forms and rituals without knowing their true purpose. So that is that fanaticism without knowing the spirit, which is to surrender to God and give up the material world or use it fully in his service. So those are the anchors that were listed here. The personality of Godhead, who is fully cognizant of everything in his creation, informs us in our best interest that we must desire to get rid of this material existence. We must detach ourselves from everything material. To make the best use of a bad bargain, our material existence should be 100% spiritualized. So that's a very nice formula. Spiritualizing. How? By constant association with Krishna's message, his devotees, and his names. Therefore, everyone who ordinarily engages in material affairs can derive the highest benefit from this Krishna consciousness movement. All kinds of spiritual endeavors are more or less tinged with material contamination. However, pure devotional service is transcendental to all pollution. We need not artificially adopt principles of materialism. We need only fix our minds on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So Prabhupada concludes with this formula of spiritualizing everything by hearing Krishna's message constantly, by associating with his devotees and his names. Therefore, that will remove the anchor of this material boat. This body is compared to a boat, and this boat needs to be sailing across the ocean of material existence to the shores of the spiritual world in the land of happiness. So we have to give up the port of problematic life and approach the land of Vaikunta, where there is no miseries. So what a beautiful chapter. Please leave us your comments on YouTube. If you have any questions, also write them there. Thank you to all of you that are here on Facebook. This is the book we've been reading, Elevation to Krishna Consciousness by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. So we will see you tomorrow for the final chapter. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Glories to the assembled devotees. Ganesham Prabhu, Luthanolo, Martin, you came through, Kamala Sundari. Atiji, always so nice to spend time with you here. Final chapter here. Yeah. Then we'll read another of the small books, and we find out that it's not that because they are small in size, then they are small in their potency. No. It's that sometimes dynamite comes in small packages. So Srila Prabhupada was so merciful that he packed these small books with very wonderful knowledge so that they are not intimidating when we see them, and we can easily read through them and read them again and again. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.